In National Geographic that any number of people would occasionally approach us and say, hey, I've found Atlantis. Lisa said I was with National Geographic for about 17 years and was the Chief Science and Exploration Officer. And among other things, I was responsible for going out and finding projects, talent, interesting opportunities, and had the chance to go to some amazing places and work with some incredible people. That I would walk you through a couple of projects that I was involved in that involved real lost cities. So this is the granddaddy of them all in terms of lost cities and lost civilizations, of course, Atlantis. And people have been fascinated with this for centuries, and we have Plato to thank for that. He, in about 360 or so BC, wrote in one of his dialogues about this amazing, wonderful, great empire that was destroyed some 9,000 years before by earthquakes and floods during a 24-hour period. And in his story, he says that the founders of Atlantis were half human, half god, that they created this utopian civilization, became a great naval power, that their home was made up of concentric islands that were separated by these wide moats, and a canal went, or rather penetrated to the center. And that the islands, of course, contained all sorts of riches, gold, silver, other precious metals, and they supported all sorts of rare and exotic animals. And now, of course, there's no evidence that such a place ever existed. The story of Atlantis, at least as Plato was telling it, was a parable. He was using the story to examine and illustrate ideas about government, power, science, wealth, and so on. But that hasn't stopped. Countless individuals over the years from floating various theories about where Atlantis might be. People have claimed that it was in the Mediterranean, that it was off the coast of Spain, off the coast of Mexico, that it was actually Ireland, even that it was under Antarctica. And in 1912, in one of the William Randolph Hearst magazines, a fellow claimed to be the grandson of Heinrich Schliemann, who was the archaeologist that had excavated Troy. And this guy claimed that the Trojan artifacts that his grandfather had uncovered revealed the true location of Atlantis, and that it was actually submerged in the Atlantic Ocean between the United States and Europe, and that the Azores are the tips of the Atlantean mountains. And so as you can imagine, in National Geographic, in my line of work, that any number of people would occasionally approach us and say, hey, I've found Atlantis. In fact, a year wasn't complete without some sort of fantastical claim. And generally, there was always a sighting of Amelia Earhart. And, you know, if you could get Amelia Earhart in Atlantis, that was kind of like the jackpot. And that's also when you called security and had that person escorted from the building. But there are some scientists who say that at least the legend has some logic to it, at least with respect to the disappearing part, that cataclysmic floods and volcanic explosions have happened throughout history, and including one that has some similarities to the destruction of Atlantis. And that is Santorini. About 3,600 years ago, there was an enormous volcanic eruption that devastated the island of Santorini, which is in the Aegean Sea off the coast of Greece. And at the time, there was a highly advanced society of Minoans who lived on Santorini. And the Minoan civilization disappeared suddenly at about the same time as this volcanic eruption. And in 2006, the underwater explorer Bob Ballard came to us and proposed an expedition to Santorini, not specifically to look for Atlantis, but the focus was going to be to study the seafloor around Santorini, because where this massive volcano erupted, it created this enormous caldera that had never been examined. And so Bob wanted to go there with his ROVs, examine the floor of the caldera. And we went and collected all sorts of valuable geological data, as well as came across some shipwrecks, but sadly no Atlantis.